I have watched a great many people grow old. Some became magnificent, serene, respected, surrounded by love. Others became bitter, lonely, and hard, pushing away everyone who might have loved them. And here is what 87 years taught me. Which one you become is not decided by luck or money or even health. It is decided by 5 choices. Choices you are making right now, whether you know it or not. Let me show you the road while you can still choose it. In 23 years on a bench and 87 years of living, I have watched more people reach old age than I can count, and I noticed something that troubled me and fascinated me in equal measure. 2 people could live nearly identical lives, the same losses, the same disappointments, the same aches and betrayals, and one would arrive at old age gracious and beloved, and the other would arrive bitter and alone. The difference was never their circumstances. It was always their choices. 5 choices, made again and again over a lifetime, until they hardened into the person you become. Here they are. The first decision: choosing gratitude over grievance. Every long life accumulates grievances. The wrongs done to you, the bad luck, the things you were owed and never got. And you can choose every day which ledger to read from. The bitter old person reads only from the ledger of grievance. They can tell you in exact detail every way life cheated them. It has become the whole story they tell. The respected old person has the same grievances, but they choose deliberately to read more often from the ledger of gratitude. I want to be clear. This is not about pretending life was fair when it was not. I have suffered real injustices, and I do not lie to myself about them. But I learned that where you place your attention becomes the shape of your soul. The man who spends his final years cataloging every wrong done to him is building a prison of resentment and then living inside it. The man who spends those same years remembering what he was given, the people who loved him, the mornings he was granted, the moments of beauty and grace, is building something else entirely, a life he can be at peace inside of. Both men had grievances, both had blessings. They simply chose which to dwell in. Choose gratitude not as a denial of your wounds, but as a decision about which of your 2 ledgers will get the most of your attention in the time you have left. The grateful grow serene, the aggrieved grow bitter, and it is truly a choice you make every single day. You have 2 ledgers, grievance and gratitude. Both are full. The one you read from every day becomes the shape of your soul. The grateful grow serene, the aggrieved grow bitter. Choose which to dwell in. The second decision: staying curious instead of becoming certain. There is a particular hardening that happens to many people as they age. They decide they have learned everything they need to know. Their opinions calcify into concrete. They stop asking questions and start only pronouncing answers. The world changes around them, and instead of trying to understand it, they simply condemn it. This is one of the surest roads to a bitter old age, and to becoming the kind of old person the young quietly avoid. I spent my career being paid to have firm opinions, to rule, to decide, to pronounce judgment. And I will tell you, the temptation to become rigidly certain about everything is enormous, and it grows with age. But I watched what it did to people. The certain old person becomes trapped inside a world that no longer exists, forever angry that reality will not conform to the way things used to be. The curious old person stays young in the only way that truly matters, in the mind. They keep asking questions. They let the young teach them things. They say, "I don't know, tell me more," instead of "in my day." And do you know what happens to that curious old person? the young seek them out. They become a treasure, an elder who is still learning, still open, still growing, rather than a monument to a vanished past that everyone must tiptoe around. Stay curious. Hold your opinions loosely enough that new truth can still get in. Certainty feels like strength, but in old age, it becomes a cage. Curiosity is what keeps you a living person, engaged with a living world, right up to the end. Certainty feels like strength, but in old age, it becomes a cage. Stay curious. Say, tell me more, instead of, in my day. The curious elder becomes a treasure the young seek out. The certain one becomes a monument they avoid. The third decision, forgiving instead of keeping score. I said much about this in another talk, but I must include it here because it is one of the great forks in the road of old age. Every person by the time they are old has been wronged, sometimes terribly, and you may carry those wrongs, nursing each one, keeping a careful account of who owes you an apology, or you may set them down. I spent 23 years keeping score for a living, weighing wrongs, assigning debts, deciding what was owed. So I know better than most how heavy a ledger of grievances becomes. And I will tell you what I never said from the bench. In your own life, keeping perfect score is a way of poisoning yourself. The bitter old person is, almost always, a person who never forgave, who arrives at the end still holding decades of unpaid emotional debts, and who has grown hard and cold from the holding. The respected old person has learned to forgive, not because the wrongs did not matter, but because they refused to spend their final years as a collections agency for old pain. Forgiveness, I have come to understand, is not a gift you give the person who wronged you. It is a release you grant yourself. The old man who forgives walks lightly. The old man who keeps score drags a lifetime of chains behind him. When you are young, keeping score feels like justice. When you are old, you finally see it for what it is, a weight that only crushes the one who carries it. Set the ledger down before it turns you bitter. The people at peace in old age are, without exception, the people who learn to forgive. When you're young, keeping score feels like justice. When you're old, you see it's a weight that only crushes the one who carries it. Set the ledger down before it turns you bitter. The forgiving walk lightly into old age. The fourth decision, choosing to give rather than to cling. As people age and their futures shorten, many begin to clutch at their money, at their possessions, at their control over others, at their own importance. They grip tighter and tighter, as if holding on hard enough might keep anything from slipping away. And this clutching is one of the great makers of a bitter, isolated old age. I have watched wealthy old people, clutching their fortunes, die surrounded by relatives who felt like circling creditors rather than family, because the old person had made their money into a weapon of control, and everyone knew it. And I have watched people of modest means grow old rich in an entirely different currency, because they were generous with their time, their wisdom, their attention, their forgiveness, their open hand and open door. Here is a law I have seen proven 100 times. The more tightly you clutch in old age, the more alone you become. And the more freely you give, the more surrounded by love you are. The clutcher believes that holding on keeps them safe. It does the opposite. It drives away every person who might have loved them, until they are left alone with the very things they refuse to share. The giver understands that at the end, the only wealth that matters is the love you generated by what you cannot take your money, your possessions, or your control into the ground. But you can spend your final years either clutching them alone or giving them and being surrounded. Choose the open hand. It is the hand that gets held at the end. The more you clutch in old age, the more alone you become. The more you give, the more surrounded by love you are. The open hand is the hand that gets held at the end. Choose it. And the fifth decision, the deepest of all, accepting change instead of fighting it. This is the choice that governs everything about how you meet old age. Because old age is, above all things, an unrelenting parade of change. Changes in your body, your role, your world, the people around you, the very ground beneath your feet. And you have exactly two ways to meet it. You can rage against every change, mourning the past and resenting the present. Or you can accept what is and adapt with grace. The bitter old person is at heart a person at war with reality, endlessly furious that they are no longer young, no longer powerful, no longer at the center, that the world has moved on and left them behind, and that war cannot be won. Reality always wins. So the person who fights it simply spends their final years in a losing battle, growing more bitter with every defeat. But the person who accepts change, who says, "This is what is now, and I will find the good in it," that person discovers something the fighter never will. There is a real and particular beauty available only in old age, a peace, a depth, a freedom from the frantic striving of youth. But you can only find it if you stop fighting the fact that you are old and start living fully inside the life you actually have. I am 87. My body is not what it was. My role in the world is not what it was. And I have made peace with all of it. And in that peace, I have found some of the finest years of my life. The tree that bends in the storm survives. The tree that refuses to bend breaks. Bend, accept the changes, adapt with grace. It is the final decision, and it determines everything, whether you spend your last chapter at war and bitter, or at peace and free. The bitter old person is at war with reality, and reality always wins. Accept the changes. The tree that bends survives. The one that refuses to bend breaks. Bend, and you'll find a peace the fighter never will. 5 decisions. Gratitude over grievance. Curiosity over certainty. Forgiveness over keeping score. Giving over clutching. And acceptance over fighting change. Notice something about all 5. Not one of them depends on your circumstances. Not one requires money or health or good fortune. Every single one is a choice, freely available to any person, rich or poor, sick or well, at any moment. That is the great and hopeful truth about old age. Whether it is respected or bitter is very largely up to you. Now hear me, because this is the whole of what I came to say. You do not become a bitter old person all at once, and you do not become a serene, respected one all at once either. Both are built the same way, by the same small choice, made 10,000 times over decades until it becomes who you are. Every time you choose grievance over gratitude, certainty over curiosity, the grudge over forgiveness, clutching over giving, or fighting over acceptance, you take one small step down the road toward a bitter end. And every time you choose the other way, you take one step toward a beautiful one. The person you will be at 80 or 90 is being built right now, today, by the choices you are making without even noticing them. So if you are young, begin choosing the right road now, while the habits are still soft and easy to shape. And if you are already old, hear this, for it is the most important thing I will say. It is never, ever too late to change direction. I have watched bitter old people in their final years choose gratitude, choose forgiveness, choose to open their clutched hands, and become, in the time they had left, beloved. The fork in the road is not behind you. You are standing at it right now, and you will stand at it again tomorrow and every day after. Choose the road to a respected old age. Choose it today, and choose it again every single day you are given. That is the whole secret. There is no other. I spent 23 years judging others. In my old age, I have learned that the only judgment that finally matters is the one you pass on yourself, by the way you choose to live your last chapter. I chose gratitude, curiosity, forgiveness, generosity, and acceptance, not perfectly, but again and again. And it has led me to an old age of peace and love and dignity that I would not trade for all the youth in the world. You can have the same. The choice is yours. It always was. You are standing at the fork right now. Choose the road to a respected old age and choose it again tomorrow. That is the whole secret. Send this to someone who is choosing which kind of old age to build.